Hello and welcome to week 3 of the CanAS podcast. Lots to talk about again this week's also super exciting. So full disclosure, we're recording on Saturday this week, so we won't be able to touch too much on the NFL. Not many Canadians played on Thursday, if any. So we won't be touching base this week too much on the NFL. Next week we'll be touching base a lot on that. So we apologize for that. Today's agenda, I guess, is the Champions League. We did have a couple of Canadians play in those, and a couple missed with injuries. The women's soccer leagues, we had a couple play in Europe, and then some stuff happening down in the States with the other teams or other players that we'll talk about. We'll talk about both the men's and women's national soccer programs, with some big announcements coming from them recently. We'll touch base on the start of the NBA training camps and its season, as well as we'll just touch base a little bit on the NFL today. And then we'll finish off with the NHL. I mean, I guess because it's the NHL, this is a Canadian podcast, we kind of have to, right? So, especially when Canadians make up almost more than half of half the league. So, all right, so we're going to start with the Champions League. This week, as most of you now know, we have 4 prominent Canadians playing in the Champions League right now. 2 actually missed time with injuries this week. So Atiba Hutchinson and Kyle Larin both missed their games this week for Besiktas. Besiktas ended up losing 2-0 to Ajax. Ajax is a really good Dutch team. I think they made it to the semifinals a few years back in the Champions League. They're a very solid team. Besiktas was in tough against them. I watched the highlights of that game. I watched the whole replay of the game afterwards, and it was a pretty tough game for Besiktas, if we're going to be honest here. Ajax was in good control most of the game. I honestly, with Larin and Atiba in, would have probably been a little bit different. I mean, Larin is a better forward option than what they had replacing him, obviously, and Atiba is the captain. So, I mean, missing your captain anytime is pretty tough. But Atiba Hutchinson, I find, is really a calming presence in their midfield. And against a really solid team like that, Ajax, who really runs the offense through the middle, I think Atiba would have been a good thing there. But
that would have definitely helped.
Would have definitely helped, yeah. We'll definitely have to talk about Davies and David again, though. I mean, I think, is it pretty safe to say that they're the face of Canadian soccer right now?
Yeah, especially men's Canadian soccer for sure.
Yeah, men's soccer, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely the face. I mean, we have a lot of really good players, but, like, definitely, I think those two are the face of the Canadian national men's program, for sure. So, Davies played this week as well, obviously. He played for his Bayern team, and they played pretty well, man. I saw the highlights of the game. It was pretty nice. What was the end of score? I think they ended up winning like 3-4, 5-0.
5-0.
Yeah, it was nuts. Davies had a pretty big role in a lot of it. I think he had a direct assist and then just making plays left, right, and center. Like, listen, man, that guy is so good. He is so good. It's actually incredible.
He's so young too.
He's so young. Yeah, Edmonton. Last week I said born and raised. He was actually just he immigrated from Africa here, and then he was just raised up here. So, correction on the last week. I apologize for that. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome, man. There's so much pride just watching him play, and it's such a big team too. Like Bayern, I was talking to my brother this week, and I think Bayern is a top 4 team in Europe right now. I think it's very realistic they make it at least to the semifinals of the Champions League, and Davies might be able to lift another trophy.
See that, yeah.
I think it's Bayern. For me, it's Bayern, PSG, Chelsea, Man City. Until I think it's those 4 teams right now. Unfortunately, there's only one man playing in those 4, and it's one Canadian man playing in those 4, and that's Alphonso Davies. So, but I digress. Davies should compete pretty well for the Champions League trophy this year. Hopefully, his ankle holds up, and he's been playing the full 90 every game so far. I think he got subbed off once or twice in the last month, that's pretty good. So, we need him this upcoming week for the national team program, which we'll talk about a little bit later here. So next we had Jonathan David. his little team didn't have as good a luck. They unfortunately ended up losing 2-1. Again, watching the highlights there, like it wasn't. It was a pretty tough loss, honestly. But it's gonna happen, man. Like Lil is still doing decent in that group. Like I think they'll still make out of that group. Teams are gonna lose. Obviously, they're currently in last place in the group. Second and third have 2 ties. Lil has a tie and a loss, so there's still lots of time to come back. They play Sevilla next, if I'm not mistaken, so that's going to be a good challenge for them.
And for those who don't know, how many games do they play in the group stage?
So they play 2 matches against each of their opponents. So there's 3 opponents, so that'd be 6.
Okay.
Yeah, so they still have 4 matches.
Chance, I would say.
Pardon me?
They would still have a decent
They still have
chance.
a good chance. Like they're still like if they win out, they're gonna make it through, right? Like it's statistically speaking, they'll make it, right? So, they're in a decent like they made it a little bit tough on themselves with the start, but I mean they played a good Wolfsburg team and I thought honestly the weakest team in this group was Salzburg, so really tough that they lost to them. I don't know, man. Like Lil. It says 2-1, but it wasn't necessarily the best game played by those guys. There was a penalty that was handed out. Like it was 2-0, and then their one goal was like a pretty weak goal, if I'm not mistaken. Just like a free kick from like a super awkward angle, and like it just got through the goalie. And as a goalie, you are taught defend your post.
Yeah.
And he did not defend that post. That's exactly where the ball went in. Anywho, yeah, tough result for sure. Like super unfortunate for Lil, but like again, it's not over.
It's still
they
pretty
can
early.
come back. They just need to really step it up. So
yeah.
And I mean that's what they were doing in the French league as well. Like they're starting to step up. They're coming a lot. They're doing a lot better in the French league. So it's like, yeah, I mean, you can't really complain too much. Like, it's still early, but they got to work towards it, right? So, yeah, they won 2 straight in the French league, so it's working out pretty decent. And then, so looking at the women who played for us this week, we had, so Manchester City, they play on Sunday, so we won't be able to talk too much about that since that is tomorrow, because recording today is Saturday. Chelsea played. And Jessie Fleming played, actually. She only played, like, the last 7 minutes of regulation and then whatever they had in extra time. But, again, like, as we touched on last week's also, I think, like, she's playing with some world-class players on that Chelsea team. And this is only going to get her to improve and only going to make her better. And she's young, man. Like, she's very young still. Like, early 20s, if that. Like... So she's definitely going to like keep on working hard in that training ground, keep on learning, and then eventually you just keep on fighting for that starting spot, and then you'll eventually get it, right?
Oh, definitely.
So, yeah, I mean it's looking pretty decent for Chelsea right now. Man City's last game they got absolutely thrashed by Arsenal, 5-0 I think if I'm not mistaken. So it's like. You know what? They'll come back. Man City's a pretty decent team on the women's side as well. Something that I actually didn't realize until today when I did a little bit more research was we actually have a woman playing in another woman playing in the English Women's League, in the Super League, and it's Adriana Leone. She's typically a starter for West Ham, a starting forward for them, so it's pretty nice that we have more women representing us over in Europe, which is pretty sweet, so... Yeah, man, I'm pretty stoked about that, to be completely honest with you. It's pretty nice to see. And then moving over to the French side, PSG is the team where we have most Canadians on, and they, again, play on Sunday. However, Lyon played, and Khadija Buchanan played. No goal for her this time, unfortunately. However, she did get a yellow card. Is that a good thing?
Something.
Yeah, it's something, man. Like... They ended up winning 4-1 against against Bordeaux. So that was good. Bordeaux scored in the 3rd minute though, so that was pretty nuts. But it's okay, man. They came back and they're doing well. Currently, the standings go: Lyon's in first. They won all their games, and then PSG Paris is in second. They also won all their games. They just played one last game. So they have a game tomorrow against pretty close to bottom of the table. I don't know how to pronounce it, Guingamp. So it'll be they should win, and it's usually always a battle between Lyon and Perez. So I'm PSG. So I think it'll be a good battle between the two teams, and yeah, I mean it'll be nice to have some Canadian content in there. But you should be Canadians playing against you got Haidema, you got Ashley Lawrence, and you got Stephanie Labbe playing back there. So that'll be pretty interesting. And then we were gonna have some women playing in the U.S. League today. However, there was some. Did you hear about what happened in the U.S. League?
No, I did not. What happened?
So in the U.S. League, there was this incident where so they're not playing this weekend in protest to a former coach who had some sexual misconduct allegations against him. So there's this. It's a big deal happening right there. So they canceled it, and the commissioner actually resigned. And the whole weekend has been canceled, and then postponed. Probably is a better way of saying it. So, yeah, it's a sexual misconduct against a former coach, Paul Riley. So, I mean, innocent until proven guilty. Totally get that. But if they're true, man, that'd be disgusting. That's just totally unacceptable. So, I mean,
there's no place for that.
No, and you know what, man? Good for them for taking a stance on this. They have a platform. Use that platform. Love that. So hopefully things will be able to be sorted out properly through the courts, and then they'll be able to play. I mean, but again, it's a sport. Sport is not as big as life. You know what I mean? So I have a lot of respect for them for standing up for themselves in that sense. So we'll keep everybody posted in the next few weeks, and hopefully we get to see some more Canadian content in that league, and then just go from there. But speaking of Canadian. So there's some pretty big news coming out of Canada soccer this week on both the men's and women's side, actually. So we'll start with the women. They were announced to have 2 friendlies in Canada, both against New Zealand. One in Ottawa on October 23rd, and then in Montreal on October 26th. So the reason this is a big deal is, I think this is what they're going to have a game in every different city, a friendly in every different city across Canada as a victory tour for their Olympic gold.
So a little victory lap around Canada?
I think so. I think people have been asking for it, man, about hey, when are you guys going to go around and just have those parties and celebrations? And hope, yeah, I'm pretty pumped.
A lot of partying.
100%. But I mean, they won. I think it was the first ever Olympic gold medal in soccer for a Canadian team.
Yeah. So I guess
that, yeah. They made history for Canada. It's such a big deal, dude. Again, I'm telling you, I cried. I was so happy when they ended up winning. This was the single biggest sports victory I felt in my life. Nowhere close. Even the Oilers Cup run in 2006, this Canada gold beats it. Not anywhere close, really. So it was super, super, super nice to see. I was so ecstatic. But I'm hoping they come here to Edmonton.
Hopefully.
I'm hoping.
I would definitely go watch.
So, you know who is coming to Edmonton, though?
Who?
The men's national team.
Yeah.
So they're coming here to play in Commonwealth, an outdoor stadium, artificial turf, outdoor, in the middle of our winter, November 12th and November 16th. So when asked, what the deuce? Herdman's yeah, man. First off, artificial turf. I don't know if you know this. Professional football players hate artificial turf. Hate it. It's actually I don't know the science behind it, but from my understanding, it's just a lot more force on the joints of the players, especially their knees and their ankles. So it's they get injured a lot easier. But us as Canadians are a little more used to it because we kind of have to play on artificial turf if we want to play year round.
Indoor soccer?
Well, yeah, exactly, right? And then, and they have to play in the winter. In November, that week could easily just be -2 or 5, but it could easily be -20 or 30 and snowing.
I hope it's -2 or 5, because I definitely don't want to bundle up to watch the
I'm bundling. I don't care if it's -40, I'm going and watching. And you know what, though? I kind of a nice -10 to 15 range would be ideal. Because the whole reason for them playing in Edmonton for those 2 games is to throw off their
I
opponents.
see who they're playing, and
Mexico,
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
and they need every advantage they can get
Yeah.
against Mexico. 100%.
That's true.
Mexico is an unbelievable team, and they were like, in my opinion, they are the best team in CONCACAF, and I
Yes.
don't really think it's much of a question.
No.
I know they didn't win the last Gold Cup, but the best teams don't always win, right? Like, they just didn't play well that game, but like top to bottom, Mexico, in my opinion, is the best team. But like, if they come here in the winter, like I support Herdman, man. Like if his Canadian, like I guarantee he asked his players what they thought about that, and most of like they're like, oh hell yeah, dude, like we'll take this advantage for sure. So
might as well.
yeah, their games are going to be pretty huge. That's going to be absolutely massive. So they're in Edmonton, Commonwealth. I'm looking for tickets already. We can't find any, but we'll get some eventually. And
We will definitely go.
Oh, 100%. But in the more near future, Canada's team gets back together this week. So I think they're going to finish the last league games this weekend. And then they're coming together because on October the 7th, that's a Thursday, I think, eh?
I believe.
Yeah, Thursday,
so.
October 7th.
Yeah.
9:40 p.m. Eastern, so 7:40 p.m. Mountain. They play Mexico in Mexico. So Estadio Azteca, the monstrosity of a stadium down there in Mexico. So that is going to be a huge game. Huge game. So in our 3-game stretch for this World Cup qualifiers, we're playing Mexico in Mexico, we're playing in Jamaica, and then we're playing at home in Toronto against Panama. And if you look at the rankings, so Mexico's in first, Panama's in fourth, right by us, and then it's Jamaica last. So the way I'm looking at it, if we leave with 6 points, I'd be pretty happy. Like really, really, really happy. If we leave with 4, I'd be okay with it. Not thrilled, but I'd be pretty okay with it. Anything less than 4, I'd be thoroughly disappointed.
I could see us probably getting 5, maybe 6.
So, for those who don't know, in soccer you get 3 points for a win, 1 for a draw, and 0 for a loss, obviously. So, I'm anticipating, ideal world, we beat Mexico, obviously. Like, we always want to win, okay? You're a competitor, you always want to win. But, ideal world, I don't know if, especially playing in Mexico, I see it a bit challenging for Canada to win. We can draw if we play how we did against the States. I think we can tie, we can draw.
I can definitely see us doing that.
Yeah, and it
Mexico.
really is all going to depend on how Davies and David and Laren play up there, and like how Richie Larea does in the back. Like our defense is really going to be tested on the Thursday's game against Mexico for sure. So I'm going to be little negative here. I say we lose to Mexico. I think it'll be a close one, maybe 2-1, 1-0. But I think we lose to Mexico. But looking at against Panama and against Jamaica, I can see us beating both of them. Jamaica, we have to win. If I'm going to I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Jamaica has to be a win. I know we're going away, but these are the games against the bottom of the table teams that have to be won, no exception. So, if Canada wants to have a legitimate chance at qualifying for the World Cup, we got to be beating these teams. We have to play hard against Mexico, U.S., and Costa Rica. Like, in my opinion, those are 3 of the better teams in CONCACAF. And then against the bottom teams, I mean, bottom we're going to put with air quotes, right? But you got to win those games. You have to. So I think Herdman's got an unbelievable philosophy, an unbelievable like coaching method and like way of motivating the men. So I really think Herdman is going to make sure that this team gets a possible 6 points. 6 points puts us pretty comfortably. I think with 6 points, yeah, I really feel that would keep us in the top 3 because you want to stay in the top 3.
Yes.
Top 3 means you automatically qualify for the World Cup. 4th place has to go play against someone in like either like Oceania, South America. Like it's a playoff to get in, like a 2-match playoff, a home and home series. So top 3 can make it, and I honestly think Canada is right now the 3rd best team in CONCACAF. I do think they're better than Costa Rica. They've shown it in the past. I think they can be better than the United States. Right now, I don't think we necessarily are, but I think we can. And I do think Mexico is the top class of this group. However, Mexico does have a draw, and it was against not a very good, like, strong showing by them, right? Like, so Mexico barely beat Jamaica 2-1. And then after that, who else did they play? They played Costa Rica. They won 1-0. And then they tied against Panama 1-1. So Panama's doing pretty well. But Panama's not the greatest team out there, man. They have one good striker, but, like, you don't win with just one player in soccer at all, right? Like, I mean, Argentina showed us that for years. They had, in my opinion, the greatest player of all time in Messi. And they couldn't win anything until they had a good team around him, and then they finally won.
I was going to say, like, in that World Cup final between Germany and Argentina, Germany just had, like, a complete team of, like, great offense, defense, midfielders, goaltending. And then there's Argentina with Messi.
Messi and Mascherano, that was it.
Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah. So, and that's what I think, like, I don't think Canada's at that stage yet, because I think we have, like, a good 3, but then a bunch of young guys developing into more. Like, I think Davies is already the best player in the country. I don't think there's any question. I think David is really, really good, and I think Laren's really, really good. Now, we have Stachio is playing well. We have Larrea is playing well. We have Borjan playing well. If we have, like, our younger kids coming up, too, I think that will be a pretty good thing for us. I think we just need a little bit more depth, especially in defense.
Yes.
Now, we have that one, our right back, who's been playing out of his mind the last little bit. Like, he's just so good defensively. So I've been pretty impressed with him. So Canada, I think, will challenge Mexico. It depends on how well Davies does, honestly. I think this game will be on Davies. If he's a threat up and down that left wing, he's insane. And I hope they keep him on the left wing, because that's where he's really been terrorizing other teams' defenses and lines. So, and like last game we beat El Salvador 3-0. Could you imagine how we would have been with Davies?
Oh yeah, we would.
It'll be good.
It'd be good, yeah.
So, and then so we got a pretty good lineup, man. I'm seeing like Davies on the left, Buchanan on the right, Estachio in the middle with Laren and David as the 2 striker options, Atiba Hutchinson as a central defensive midfielder, and then we have Larrea on the left, Kennedy in the middle, and then our defense is just a little weak, man. Our wing backs are good, but our central defenders are not the greatest right now, I don't think. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. This will be a massive, massive week for the Canadian men's program.
Yeah.
And then so I think that's all really for the men's program. Like, just really stay tuned, because on Thursday that will be a massive, massive, massive game. So, from my understanding, that game can be shown on either One Soccer or TSN. TSN has aired a few of those games, so we're just gonna have to see, I guess, how it goes from there. But yeah, buddy, I'm so excited. This is going to be a really, really, really good week for Canada.
Really good.
I'm excited, nervous, but excited, So, and then man, the women's team is coming back to Canada for their victory tour. Super excited about that. I'm definitely going to see them when they come to Edmonton. It's just, again, every last woman that was on that team deserves a statue of them somewhere. Like, they should rename the city of Burnaby or the city of Surrey, wherever Christine Sinclair is from, to Christine Sinclair City. Home of Christine Sinclair.
Make it sound better, not Christine Sinclair City.
Yeah, honestly, they should just completely rename that city. Honestly,
just Sinclair. There we go.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know what it is, but they got to rename it or something. Like, that woman has already won every possible civilian accolade that she could get, like named to the Order of Canada and everything like that. But yeah, what she's done for soccer in this entire country, let alone women's soccer, both men's and women's, is just insurmountable. Davies is going to try, though. There's a lot of kids now looking up to Davies.
I was going to say in a couple of years, probably.
Davies needs to do a lot to accomplish anywhere close to what Sinclair did, though. Right? And I honestly, for the longest time, I was a bigger fan of the women's team than the men's team. I wouldn't actually watch a men's team game because it was just so stressful to watch. They were just so bad. So I'd have it on the TV and everything, but I was more entertained watching the women's team by far. and now it's a nice mix because the women's team is always competitive. They're always off, it's always good matches, and then you just start expecting more out of them, right?
Yeah.
But so I'm pumped, man. This is what an incredible time to be a soccer fan here in this country. Like truly, absolutely remarkable. Like we have so much talent on both men's and women's side. Like it's oh my gosh, dude. Like I'm so happy right now to be a Canadian soccer fan. So we'll briefly touch base on the NBA and NFL. By the time this episode is released, Chuba Hubbard would have already played. Same with Claypool and all of them. So we'll touch base more on them next week when we'll have 2 games that we can talk about them. But this is a big week for Chuba Hubbard. Like this is a big week. He can really cement himself as a back in the NFL. Like he's playing. Christian McCaffrey's injured, so he's going to be taking over for McCaffrey for this week, and that is a big deal, buddy. That's a big deal. Like just yeah. I mean, he's going to be the lead back on a pretty decent Carolina Panthers team this week. And who are they playing today? They're not playing somebody super good, are they?
They're playing Dallas. So they're
the Cowboys.
Decent,
the Cowboys' defense isn't
their
great.
Their defense isn't great, yeah. So
he has a real good chance at actually making a big, especially because a dual threat back. He's not a big dude, but he's like really elusive. So like he can get around them. So I think he should do pretty well. The Steelers play against my Packers, so I think something that's always doomed my Packers is our defense, especially our cornerbacks. But I do think it will be a really challenging game today for Claypool, especially with a quarterback who's actually not playing quite well, and Ben Roethlisberger. So, and that's what sucks really with wide receivers, especially running backs. If you have a decent O-line, you can really and even if you don't have a decent O-line, you can make room for yourself at some point, right? But wide receiver is almost exclusively dependent on the quarterback, right? Like you have to have the ball thrown to you. You can make routes, you can juke yourself, but if the quarterback can't get you the ball, then there's no way you're gonna get any yards, you're gonna get anything, right? So Claypool's really dependent on Roethlisberger. And when Big Ben isn't playing that well, like he has like 50 plus attempts a game, which is absurd, but he doesn't complete that many of them anymore. Like, which is unfortunate, man, because Big Ben was one of the better QBs of his generation for sure. Like, such a pleasure to watch, and it'll be interesting to see how Claypool does, because it is really dependent on that quarterback position on that team. And that quarterback position for me right now is a little bit iffy. Right? Like, it's a little scary to look at, really. But that also being said, Ben Roethlisberger is one of the greater quarterbacks that we've seen in generations. He is really, really strong quarterback, and he can come back. I mean, he's getting up there in age, but I think he can still put a decent season together. Like, even an 80% Roethlisberger is still a pretty damn good quarterback. That's really all we'll touch base on the NFL. Like I said, we'll talk more about it next week for sure. We'll have a couple games to look over, and hopefully it's I don't know, man. It's tough. Like, I want my Packers to win, but I want Claypool to do well. So we'll go with that.
Yeah, we'll just talk about them
next week.
Yeah. See how they did.
And then this week as well, we're starting with the NBA training camps. Like the physicals are starting this week, and they're starting to get together. Obviously, we have the one Canadian team in the Toronto Raptors. It's going to be a tough year for the Raptors. I think they're still a decent team. Siakam needs to step up. Their 4th overall pick this year has to do pretty well. And then I think this is another rebuilding year. I think they might be able to challenge for a playoff spot if Siakam plays the way he should. But the Eastern Conference really stacked up, man. Like, there's 2 to 3 super teams that have been made. I think they're going to really miss Kyle Lowry. Like, really, really, really miss Kyle Lowry. And then, yeah, I mean, and we have a couple of Canadians playing as well, like Chris Boucher, who plays for the Raptors. We got Jamal Murray, who's currently out. He tore his ACL in the playoffs or the end of the season last year for the Denver Nuggets. So, I mean, the soonest he can possibly come back, according to projections, is December. I think it's a lot more realistic that he comes back March, April. Again, I'm not a doctor, though, so I don't really know too much on like how the rehab there works. But yeah, I mean, I do definitely think that the Raptors are going to be a team.
Nope.
Yeah. Actually, and probably one of the biggest Canadian names that have been in the NBA for a while now, a little underwhelming for a bit, but it's Andrew Wiggins. And Andrew Wiggins has actually, I don't know if you know this, he applied for exemption for the vaccine policy. He didn't get it. I think it's for religious reasons, but he's going to be in tough, man. Like he plays for the Warriors, and like the Warriors in that city, like they have that policy where you can't even be anywhere without a vaccine. So he's going to be in tough, man. He's going to be in really tough for this year. So hopefully it works itself out. Like it is going to be tough on him if he can't play because he's going to lose his spot to Klay Thompson for sure. I mean, he was going to lose it anyways, even if he had the vaccine. But Klay Thompson coming back, Steph Curry, that would have been a really good learning experience for him, just to play behind those two guys and really see how, like, two of the greatest shooters of all time in that team. Yeah, I mean,
I guess we'll see what happens, and
we'll see how it goes. I mean, we'll go more in depth on the Raptors in the coming weeks when the season actually is about to start up. And we'll probably do a little bit of a breakdown where we think they'll finish and go from there. Cool. So yeah, I think from there we'll just go straight to the NHL. So the NHL, yeah, the training camps are starting to wrap up. It's T-minus like 10 to 11 days until the Oilers season starts. So we're a week and a half until the regular season starts.
I'm pretty stoked about that.
Yeah. So we already gave you guys our projections for the Canadian teams and how they're going to do. So really what we're going to just touch base on is just how the Canadian training camps are going right now. I think we'll mostly touch base on the Oilers for now, and then we'll probably look into the other guys next week, and then seeing how their finalized rosters are. But like looking at each team in Canada, there's some roster battles going on right now, really. I mean, I think... So the Toronto Maple Leafs have a pretty set roster already and what they brought in. I think Montreal has a couple battles, but it's only because of injuries that are coming in right now. Carey Price is going to start on the IR. Yeah, they've got like 2 or 3 guys in the IR in Montreal, so that will be a roster battle in itself. Since our last recording, Vancouver has signed their 2 pending RFAs, and honestly, like, unbelievable move by Jim Benning on those ones, man.
Pretty good deals for both Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes.
Like, really good job from his side and just getting as much bang for his buck as he can. Like, the Elias Pettersson deal, I definitely see both perspectives. One, you want him to commit to your city for at least a couple of years. Go from there. So that's probably Jim Benning's reasoning for not wanting. Because if I was Pettersson, I'd probably want a 1 or 2 year deal just to really like go year by year. Because that's the way he was looking at it, right? Like, he was like, he wants to play on a winning team, and he doesn't know if Vancouver is the team for him right now. So, Elias Pettersson just signed for 3 years and $7.375, I think, like just over $7 million a year. And if you guys remember, I thought he was going to get 8 years, $10 million from Eichel. And if he would have gone 8 years, I think it would have been up there. But the fact that he got a bridge deal, like it was a really smart play by Benning, man. Like, build a team around him and then be able to like move in and afford the big raise.
Yeah,
I don't know when.
I was gonna say like this just gives Benning a little bit of time to actually like make a really good team around Pettersson so that he'll want him to stay. Like, he'll want to stay in Vancouver instead of giving him like an 8-year deal. But then it's just like, oh, we have time to make a team. Like, this makes it more. Yeah. Benning will have to make a good team for Pettersson to want to stay.
And if I'm not mistaken, in 3 years' time, some pretty big contracts expire. So like, they'll be able to really pay him. So I don't like the fact that it's a smart play, but it's a smart play by Benning. So
it's for Vancouver, so it's not good for us.
Yeah. So the last big name RFA yet to sign is on a Canadian team, and it's Brady Cachaca.
Brady Cachaca, yeah.
Yeah. So from my understanding, he was offered 8 by 8, so 8 years, $8 million a year, similar to what Shabbat is paid. I think that's a lot of money. I think Brady Cachaca brings a lot of intangibles to that team, but I don't know, man. $8 million is quite a bit of money for a guy who doesn't put that much points up.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it's gonna have to be less than Pettersson now because.
Well, if he signs a 3-year deal, yeah.
Yeah.
But Brady Cachaca, and I don't think you can really compare Brady Cachaca that much to Elias Pettersson, though, because I think they're two completely different players. Like, Brady is like more of a physical presence. He's more of a agitator. He's tougher than his brother. He actually fights. He actually stands up for himself and his team. Sorry, he stands up. True. Matt Tkachuk stands up for his team, but he cowers away in a turtle in the corner once it happens. Like,
At least Brady has.
Yeah, I have a lot
Brady
of
has the
respect for Brady
gonads
Cachaca.
to
He's a
stand up.
pest. He's a pain in the butt, but you know what? He's a good player, man.
Yes.
But 8 by 8, I think, is a big contract. But honestly, I would do it. I would love to have Brady Cachaca on our team. On the Oilers, I'd take Brady Cachaca.
Oh,
in a
on the
heartbeat.
Oilers, yeah. No, for sure.
But I don't know if I'd give him we'd have to move some people around. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see, man. That's a tough one. I mean, Ottawa has a couple of battles in there too. But that's a really young team. That is a really young team. Ottawa's battles are going to be mostly on the defensive side. Their offense is pretty set up. They have a couple lesser known players, but that's going to be on their fourth line.
Yeah.
And then this team is really started. This is a young team, and this is they said the rebuild's over. They're going to go for a win now. I don't see it with their roster. But we'll talk about Ottawa's roster more in the midweek episode this week. And then, so we touched base on Montreal, Toronto. They don't have too many roster battles going on right now. I think that roster is pretty set. Calgary's got a few interesting roster battles going on over there, mostly third and fourth line. And then Edmonton here has, I believe, 3 spots in the forward group.
Yeah, I was just going to say 2, 3 players, and that's it.
So it'll be interesting how training camp wraps up, because right now it looks like, for the Oilers at least, Perlini's really fought for a spot on there. I think it's realistic. I think Fogle, I think it was really between Shore, McLeod, Perlini, Skeevier, and Benson. Those 5 are fighting for 2 to 3 spots, right?
Yeah.
It really all depends. So it'll be interesting. Last week of the season, we're going to see a lot of those battles. None of these teams have really fielded their A team quite yet. The Jets and Oilers have played a couple of games this week too, and the Jets didn't ice their A teams really, not even half of them so far. So, and then the Jets, man, last team we'll touch on here in the NHL part of this the episode this week is they obviously have no battles in goal. I really don't think they have much of a battle in defense. I think they upgraded their defense enough that they don't have to push their prospects up that quick. So I think they'll have a decent number 7, more of one of the veteran guys that they brought in to be the number 7, and then let the rest of the guys develop in the minors, which I love the way that that works. And then in the forward group, I think they'll have one roster fight, but in the fourth line. I don't think it's going to be that big. And
I think
their
their
fourth
top
line
9
and the
is
13th.
Pretty much set.
Yeah, they got a really good top 9, really good. So. Yeah, and some pretty big names were cut this week too. Did you notice? So I was looking at Seattle's cut list. So they got the Kraken cut Olofsson, and Cale Fleury. So Cale Fleury is a good young right shot defenseman, and that's something the Oilers are actually. So we have 3 good ones right now, but we don't have if any of those 3 go down to injury this year, we don't really have a right shot guy that we can bring up that can fill that spot that's NHL ready. So it would be really interesting to see if Holland goes for Cale Fleury on the waiver wire as our 7th defenseman.
That'd probably be a good pickup, at least to give us some depth just in case there's an injury, like you said. So,
Lagesson isn't playing. Our Oilers defense is pretty much set. You're only fighting for that third lefty and then that number 7 spot.
Yeah.
Or maybe they claim Cale Fleury and send him down to the minors to play there, and then call him up if we ever need him.
That'd probably be the best bet.
I think that'll be the play. Yeah, unless somebody claims him back.
If Holland claims him.
I do think they should look into him though. He's 6'1", so height wise he's decent, but he's not a big defender. He's more of I would put him more of an offensive kind of player, not a big shutdown kind of D. But I think he could be a good addition. We'll see. Holland knows more about hockey than I do, so I'm going to trust whatever he goes on. So, anyways, that's going to do it for us, I think, this week. Hey, Celso?
Yeah.
So for this week, again, guys, you have to watch Canada's soccer team play, man. On the 7th and then again on the 10th. Those are going to be 2 massive, massive, massive games. Hopefully they do. I can see them resting a couple of guys against Jamaica. Maybe Davies has a night off if he feels the ankle a little bit, because remember, he's still playing with a little bit of like a, I wouldn't say injury necessarily, but he's just playing a little banged up right now. Yeah, so we're going to need some guys to step up that game, man. Like, Buchanan needs to have a heck of a game. I think Buchanan, Lairn, and then our two central defenders, whoever plays as a central defense, really needs to pick it up. Yeah. Kamal Miller is going to play. We have Kennedy who's going to play. We have Alistair Johnson at the right back, and then left back Richie Laria. Like, I'm pretty impressed. Like, I'm pretty happy with that. We have Steven Vittoria back there too. So like they're gonna be really hard pressed against Mexico. Like, it's gonna be a tough match for them. So
it's gonna be a tough match, yeah, because I think at the same time the States are playing Jamaica, so there's a possible 3 points right there for the States. So they're gonna have to keep up with Mexico at least draw and then be able to win the next 2 games in order to stay with the States.
And then in the next break, the U.S. and Mexico play. So I think ideally they play to a draw and then Canada wins the game that they have on hand. But again, so this is going to be really exciting. We're really going to start to figure out who's going to finish where after this week, because there's a good chance that there's some separation now and there's only really 5 teams left in it, right? Because after this, there's only 10 games left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
we will see.
All right, so everybody tune into those games. Support Canada as best as you can, because this is truly an incredible time to be a soccer fan in Canada. Like, just love it, enjoy it. If you're trying to figure out where to watch the games, then just reach out to us on either Twitter via email, and we'll be able to hook you guys up. So for this week's midweek episodes, our first video will be talking about the Eastern Canadian NHL teams. An in-depth look into them, as well as where we think they'll finish. And then the second one, we're going to introduce a new little segment in regards to pro wrestling. This also is a fanatic about pro wrestling, and there's a few Canadians in there apparently in pro wrestling. So
there's a bunch of Canadians around the world wrestling in the wrestling industry, I guess.
Cool.
So we'll introduce the Running the Ropes segment, which is we'll just talk about, just have some tidbits on the Canadian wrestler and just matches and like storylines that I've liked for those wrestlers, just introducing everyone to another side of the sports industry.
Cool. So we'll take a deeper look into into wrestling on Friday's episode. So thank you everybody for listening to this week's episode, and tune on later on this week.